Blood splattered the shattered viewports of the Vognir Bridge as vengeful humans tore the despised aliens limb from slimy limb, finally delivering brutal justice for the Sigma Draconis III genocide. But it hadn't always been like this, with victorious humanity on the verge of eradicating the cruel Vognir forever. Just 5 years ago, in humanity's darkest hour, with the survival of our species threatened like never before, Earth's fate had rested in the scarred hands of one man, Nathan Davis. The grizzled, battle-weary veteran jolted awake in a cold sweat, gasping for breath in his Spartan bunk aboard the UES Indomitable, humanity's most powerful warship. The horrific nightmares were always the same, forcing Nathan to relive that fateful day when the ruthless Vognir death fleet attacked the human colony on Sigma Draconis III without warning or mercy. In searing flashbacks, he was a young Navy lieutenant again, watching in gut-wrenching horror as the cruel alien ships rained down plasma bombs from orbit, igniting the very atmosphere. The defenseless colony burned as millions of innocent civilians were incinerated alive. Agonized screams of the dying filled the air, nearly drowned out by the roar of the flames. The stench of charred flesh stung Nathan's nostrils as the sky rained ashes of the dead. But that wasn't the worst of it. As if genocide wasn't enough, the Vognir then harvested the scorched corpses littering the ruins, using the bodies of slaughtered humans as fuel for their vile organic ships. It was the ultimate insult, a sickening display of alien cruelty and barbarism that finally pushed humanity to the brink. Nathan clenched his fists, the rage still burning inside him all these years later. He'd sworn a blood oath that day amidst the ashes and embers, vowing to avenge the innocent dead of Sigma Draconis III, no matter the cost. That fateful massacre had ignited a desperate war for survival. Humans fighting to avoid extinction, the Vognir seeking to snuff out humanity's very existence. But now, the tables were turning at last. As Nathan strode onto the bridge of the Indomitable in the pre-dawn hours, he allowed himself a tight, grim smile. The final human offensive was about to begin, a massive, coordinated strike to vanquish the hated Vognir once and for all. If this daring assault succeeded, the alien threat would be ended forever, mankind saved from the brink of annihilation. But if they failed, then humanity itself would soon be nothing more than a memory, and the blood of billions would be on Nathan's hands. The stakes couldn't be higher. The survival of the human species itself hung in the balance as the battered UES Warfleet prepared for its most critical campaign yet. Nathan Davis, his heart hardened by years of war and loss, would lead them into the jaws of hell itself to decide the fate of mankind. One way or another, this would be the final reckoning between man and Vognir. For the sake of all humanity, failure was not an option. Nathan slid into his station, his fingers flying across the tactical console as he curtly nodded acknowledgement to his crewmates. The bridge bustled with tightly controlled activity, the tension palpable. Without warning, the ship's klaxons blared an ear-splitting alert. Long-range sensors had picked up a cloaked Vognir ship lurking in the swirling accretion disk of a nearby binary star system. "Battle stations, all hands to battle stations," Captain Alicia Graves barked, her steely voice cutting through the erupting chaos. The veteran commander's iron-grey hair and hawk-like gaze reinforced her authority as she decisively ordered the mighty warship to intercept the alien threat. Nathan's eyes narrowed as his hands danced over the controls, diverting power to the Indomitable's advanced weaponry and reinforced shielding. An uneasy feeling crept up his spine as they raced toward the coordinates. The Vognir never sent ships alone. This reeked of an ambush. As if on cue, a massive Vognir dreadnought shimmered into view directly above them, decloaking from its hiding spot. The horrific organic warship pulsed with sickly bioluminescence, its hull slick with pulsating vein-like protrusions. "Shit, it's a trap!" Nathan snarled through gritted teeth. The Indomitable shuddered violently as the dreadnought opened fire, alien bioplasma sizzling against their shields, eating away at the defensive barrier with alarming speed. Sparks flew, and consoles exploded from the brutal impacts. Nathan struck back with cold fury, his fingers slamming the firing controls. The Indomitable's railguns roared to life, hurling hypervelocity slugs that tore into the dreadnought's fleshy hull and sprayed ichor across the starfield. Keening alarms shrieked through the bridge, nearly drowning out the groans of twisting metal. As the Indomitable endured a hellish pounding, the lights flickered ominously, threatening to plunge them into darkness. Refusing to bow, Nathan diverted everything they had to the weapons, pouring all their might into the desperate counterattack. Just as all seemed lost, the dreadnought suddenly staggered, racked by internal explosions that chained through its putrid innards. Belching gouts of flame, the grievously wounded alien ship listed to the side and veered away, bleeding burning debris into the void. "We've got an incoming transmission from the Wagner ship. It's a distress signal," the comms officer called out in disbelief. Nathan stared at the view screen, his brow furrowed as a rasping alien voice crackled through the flickering static. "Help us, please," it croaked in broken English. "Defectors, enemies of Wagner, have intel for humans." Suspicion and mistrust warred with a tantalizing spark of hope in Nathan's gut. He locked eyes with Captain Graves, an unspoken understanding passing between them. If this was genuine, if the defectors truly had valuable intelligence to share, it could turn the tide of the entire war. But the risk of another deception was extraordinarily high. Captain Graves stared at the view screen, her piercing eyes locked on the crippled Wagner ship. The seconds ticked by like hours as she weighed the risks and rewards, the bridge crew waiting with bated breath. She finally gave a curt nod. "Stand down, weapons. Prepare a boarding party." "I'll lead them myself," Nathan said, standing. A strange feeling in his gut told him this Wagner defector could change everything. Graves held his gaze for a long moment before agreeing. Minutes later, Nathan and his squad of battle-hardened Marines stood in the airlock, encased in sleek combat armor, mag rifles held at the ready. The inner door to the Indomitable sealed behind them with a resounding clang. Taking a deep breath of filtered air, Nathan signaled the all-clear. The outer door ground open and they pushed off, floating across the void to the alien ship's gaping airlock. As soon as Nathan's boots hit the fleshy deck, a wave of nausea churned his stomach. The air reeked of rotting meat and sickly sweet decay. Every surface pulsed wetly, like the bowels of some colossal beast. Sticky fluids dripped from bulbous protrusions in the ceiling, spattering their armor. Strange clicking and skittering sounds drifted from branching tunnels that stretched into darkness. "Jesus," a Marine muttered. "It's like we're inside a damn carcass." "Lock it down," Nathan growled. "Stay focused." He motioned them forward deeper into the biomechanical horror of a ship. Their lights played over grotesque walls that undulated and quivered. Hairs rose on the back of Nathan's neck as they moved through the oppressive gloom, a primordial corner of his brain screaming at him to flee this unnatural place. Every instinct told him it was a trap, but his gut drove him onward. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. After an interminable trek through the hellish innards of the ship, they emerged into a cavernous chamber that must have been the command center. A single Wagner lay crumpled against a bulbous control console, its leaf-green shell cracked, viscous sap oozing from the wounds. It looked up at them with dimming compound eyes, antennae twitching weakly. "I am Mizar," it said in halting English. "I have betrayed my people to help you. You must listen." "Say your piece, Bug," Nathan said coldly, rifle never wavering. The creature told an incredible tale. A secret base where Wagner scientists were crafting a doomsday weapon to eradicate Earth and sterilize the galaxy, a genetically engineered plague that could adapt to any species. Mizar claimed to be part of a rebel faction that wanted to end the war. It offered to guide them to the research base and help them infiltrate it for the price of asylum. Nathan's finger itched on the trigger. It had to be a ruse, a trick to lure them into a trap. But if it was true, he made the call. "Hernandez, Kovac, secure the Wagner. We're bringing it to the captain." He opened a comlink to the Indomitable. "Boarding party to bridge. You're going to want to hear this." Hours later, the Indomitable prowled through the void, slipping into orbit around a desolate moon. Scans showed the base was a fortress, ringed with heavy defenses, minefields, anti-ship batteries, fighter screens. Infiltration would be bloody and borderline suicidal. But the alternative, a bioweapon that could end sapient life itself, was unthinkable. In the armory, Nathan and his Marines checked their weapons with grim focus. Magazines clicked into rifles, power cells hummed to life. No one spoke. They all knew many of them wouldn't be coming back. Mizar crouched nearby under heavy guard, ready to guide them to their target. Nathan met each of his squad's eyes in turn, seeing the unspoken bond of soldiers prepared to give their lives for a higher cause. He thought of Earth, his parents' farm, the rolling fields of wheat under an open sky. The happy childhood memories seemed to belong to someone else a lifetime ago. All that mattered now was the mission. Failure was not an option. He slapped a magazine into his rifle and pulled the charging handle. It was time. "Load up," he said quietly. "Let's go be big goddamn heroes." In silence, they boarded the waiting dropship, the Vognia defector in tow. The sleek craft detached from the Indomitable and sliced toward the moon's surface, an arrowhead-shaped slice of darkness against the stars. Nathan felt a strange sense of calm as they fell toward the base, rifle cradled against his chest, the point of no return. The dropship bucked as the base's anti-air guns opened up, filling the void with lines of tracer fire. Alarms warbled, and the craft jinked hard, the nanosecond reflexes of the AI pilot the only thing keeping them from being blasted to atoms. Nathan braced against his restraints as the moon's craggy surface rose to meet them, the Vognia base growing in the viewports. It squatted on the rocky plain like a brooding nightmare, a blend of vile technology and twisted organic structures pulsing with unearthly bioluminescence. The pilot's voice crackled over the comm, tight with strain. "Touchdown in 30 seconds. Give 'em hell down there, Marines." Nathan's grip tightened on his rifle, adrenaline surging through his veins. This was it, the defining moment of his life, of the entire war. The future of the human race would be decided here, on this barren rock. One way or another, the nightmare ended today. He closed his eyes and whispered the names of the fallen, those butchered on Sigma Draconis Threed and all the worlds since. He would carry their memory into battle, their righteous fury. The Vognia had sown the wind, and now they would reap the whirlwind. As the dropship screamed toward the LZ, all Nathan could hear was the pounding of his own heart, the blood roaring in his ears. He felt a strange sense of destiny, as if his entire life had been leading to this moment. All the pain, all the loss, all the sacrifices, it had all been for this. The ship jolted hard, and the landing ramp cracked open, blinding light spilling into the crew compartment. Biting back a battle cry, Nathan leapt into the maelstrom, mag rifle spitting death. He charged down the ramp into the jaws of hell, his brothers and sisters at his side, death and glory awaiting. One way or another, this ended here. The airlock doors slammed shut behind Nathan and his squad, cutting off the harsh glare of the alien sun. The dropship lifted off with a roar of thrusters that faded into silence as it soared back into orbit. Nathan blinked rapidly, his eyes adjusting to the deep shadows of the canyon as an unsettling quiet descended. The towering rock walls seemed to press in from all sides, jagged and threatening. "Form up," Nathan said tersely, motioning the Marines into a staggered line. "Stay alert, we don't know what's out here." They moved out with practiced efficiency, boots crunching on gravel, hugging the canyon walls. Miser scuttled along near the front, its chitin gleaming dully in the muted light. Nathan kept a wary eye on the Vognia defector, his finger resting on his rifle's trigger guard. The winding canyon opened into a narrow ravine choked with boulders and scraggly vegetation. Mizar raised a foreleg, pointing to a dark cleft in the rock face. "There," it chittered. "Access tunnel. Leads into base." Nathan peered into the tunnel mouth, seeing only blackness. He flipped down his low-light visor, the integrated electronics painting the darkness in ghostly green hues. "Hernandez, take point. Jacobs, bring up the rear. Let's move." They filed into the tunnel, the one light from the entrance fading behind them. The air grew cool and dank, heavy with the mineral tang of rock. The tunnel walls pressed close, forcing them to proceed single file. The only sounds were the crunch of boots, the creak of armor, and the rasp of filtered breathing. Hernandez froze, raising a fist. Nathan heard it too, a faint skittering noise echoing from deeper in the tunnel. He strained his eyes, scanning the darkness, a trickle of cold sweat running down his spine. A scream tore through the silence. Nathan whipped around just as Private Jacobs was yanked off his feet, thrashing and bellowing. In the stuttering flashes of muzzle fire, Nathan caught a glimpse of glistening tentacles coiled around the Marine's legs, dragging him into the blackness. "Contact rear!" Hernandez shouted, ripping off a burst from his rifle. Inhuman shrieks filled the tunnel as more slithering shapes poured from hidden crevices. Barbed tendrils lashed out, seeking flesh and armor. "Abominations!" Mizar shrieked. "Wagner experiments, kill them!" The tunnel erupted into chaos, strobing with the hellish light of weapons fire. Nathan fired until his rifle clicked empty, the barrel smoking, spent shells tinkling at his feet. A tentacle snaked around his ankle. He stomped and kicked, feeling it crunch and spurt foul ichor. They fought their way forward, Hernandez hosing the horrors with his flamethrower, buying precious space. Nathan reloaded, slamming a fresh mag home. "Keep moving!" he roared. Their advance was a nightmarish gauntlet, a blur of slashing talons and gnashing maws in the strobing dark. Jacobs's screams had faded, his fate sealed. Other Marines fell, dragged into the writhing morass, their agonized cries swallowed by the depths. At last they broke through, stumbling into a cavernous chamber that stank of chemicals and rot. Sickly bioluminescent light pulsed from conduits snaking along the walls. Murky tanks burbled and seethed, filled with pale, half-formed things that twitched and spasmed. The Marines advanced cautiously, their faces ashen, eyes haunted by the horrors behind them. Nathan grabbed Mizar roughly, slamming the creature against a tank. "What the hell was that?" he snarled. "You never said anything about those things." Mizar's mandibles worked in agitation. Experiments failures. Wagner tried to grow perfect soldiers. Things went wrong, mistakes got free. "I've lost 3 men to your damned mistakes," Nathan spat. He shoved Mizar away in disgust. "Corporal Shu, watch our rear. If any more of those freaks show up, torch 'em." They pushed deeper into the base, following Mizar's directions through a labyrinth of organic corridors. The walls pulsed softly, as if breathing. Deserted labs branched off to either side, filled with incomprehensible equipment and grotesque specimens floating in viscous fluid. The stench of death and alien chemicals grew stronger. Suddenly, a wailing klaxon split the air. Blast doors thundered shut at each end of the corridor, trapping them. Red lights began to flash in sickening patterns. Mizar let out a keening wail. "They know," it chittered. "We are detected." "What do you mean, detected?" Nathan demanded. He grabbed Mizar, slamming it against the fleshy wall. "Did you sell us out, you bug-eyed freak?" "No," Mizar shrieked. "Not Mizar, must be spy." A hideous laughter boomed from unseen speakers, echoing from the pulsing walls. "Well done, Mizar," a rasping Wagner voice said in perfect English. "You have delivered the humans, as planned. The Directorate thanks you for your service." Mizar wailed and gibbered, its legs scrabbling frantically at the air. "No, lies, Mizar, not betray." Nathan's blood ran cold. He raised his rifle, pointing it at Mizar's head. The creature's compound eyes widened in terror, its mandibles clacking frantically. Before he could demand answers, a series of rending booms shook the corridor. The walls at the far end peeled open, revealing a kill team of heavily armed Wagner soldiers. They opened fire immediately, spraying the corridor with sizzling plasma. "Cover!" Nathan roared. The Marines scrambled, diving behind bubbling nutrient tanks and instrument panels as superheated energy blasts filled the air. The sharp tang of ozone mingled with the coppery stench of human blood. Nathan returned fire around the edge of a tank, the staccato thunder of his rifle, joined by the booming reports of Hernandez's shotgun. Wagner warriors crumpled and spasmed, spraying ichor across the walls, but more surged forward to take their place. "Fall back," Nathan bellowed over the din. "Seal the doors." The Marines gave ground, laying down withering fire as they leapfrogged back. Rodriguez slapped a breaching charge on the blast door behind them. The explosion rocked the corridor, shredding 2 Wagner warriors who had pushed too close. The Marines poured through the jagged hole, Rodriguez and Shu covering the rear. Nathan shoved Mizar ahead of him, his rifle jammed between its armored shoulders. The alien stumbled and gibbered, its movements jerky with fear. Shu screamed, a plasma bolt taking him high in the chest. He crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Rodriguez dragged him through, his face grim as he fired one-handed. Together they manhandled the heavy door shut, the mechanisms grinding and screeching. Nathan rammed home the locking bolts, buying a temporary reprieve. They found themselves in a dimly lit laboratory, filled from floor to ceiling with huge murky tanks. Pale shapes drifted within, illuminated by intermittent flashes of lightning from electrical nodes. A bank of control panels blinked and hummed beneath a central observation window. The air reeked of preservative chemicals and ozone. Nathan took quick stock. Shu was down, his armor blackened and still smoking. Hernandez crouched over him, working frantically to stem the bleeding. Rodriguez reloaded grimly, his dark eyes burning with barely leashed fury. The other 2 Marines, Kovacs and Bianchi, were pale but uninjured, their weapons trained on the sealed door. The sound of Wagner cutting tools screeched from the other side, sputters of sparks jetting through the air gaps. Mizar huddled in the center of the room, keening and shuddering. Nathan grabbed it roughly, slamming it against a tank. The sloshing liquid cast eerie shadows across his contorted features. "Start talking," he snarled. "What the hell is going on? The truth, or I'll feed you to your own damn abominations." Mizar's mandibles worked soundlessly, its legs scrabbling weakly at Nathan's armored forearms. "Please, not betray, is misunderstanding." A wet, rattling cough drew Nathan's attention. Private Jacobs, propped against the base of a tank, shakily raised his rifle to point at Mizar. His face was pale, flecked with blood, his eyes glassy with pain and dawning realization. "It's the alien!" Jacobs gasped out, each word a struggle. "The traitor! It led us into a trap." Nathan stared at the wounded Marine, his grip on Mizar slackening fractionally. Suspicion and dread warred within him, a cold knot tightening in his gut. Mizar had gotten them this far, but the Wagner's words still rang in his ears. Had it all been a ruse? A ploy to deliver them right into the enemy's waiting clutches? The screeching from the door intensified, the metal beginning to glow cherry red. They were out of time. Nathan's gaze flicked from Jacob's ashen face to Mizar's twitching form, indecision ripping through him like a rusty blade. The creature was their only guide, their only chance of escape. But could they trust it? Had they ever been able to trust it? Mizar twisted in Nathan's grip, its voice rising in pitch. "Please, human. Mizar only wished to help, to end war. Mizar not lie." Nathan's jaw clenched, his finger tightening on the trigger. One wrong move, one wrong choice, and they were all dead. But which choice was the right one? Who was the real enemy here? The door shrieked, the metal bubbling and running like wax. They had seconds, if that. Nathan closed his eyes, drawing in a shuddering breath. There was no more time for doubt. He made his choice. Fersin wa plenty erster. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.